Yeah.
All right, good evening once again. And today is um, lecture two. And yesterday we did lecture one, where we discussed what strategy is, what strategic management is. We looked at the hierarchy of objective, and that was where we looked at mission, vision, goal. We looked at the drivers of strategic objective. We looked at balance scorecard. Then we finally went to end at stakeholder management or stakeholder expectation management, where we looked at the two models or the two frameworks, and we discussed that with examples. We solved the questions under the lecture one. So now we have moved from um, lecture one, vision, mission. We are coming to lecture two, which is corporate values and culture. Corporate values and culture. So I always begin my lecture by asking a question. What is corporate core value? What is corporate core value? Now, these are the guiding principles and beliefs that underpins what a company does and how it acts. Value. As individuals, we have value. Um, we have our own values. My value is that I will never steal. My value is that I will never be promiscuous. These are beliefs that as an individual you have that guide your actions and inactions. It is the same thing that companies also have beliefs that guides what they do. So when we talk about corporate value, we are looking at the guiding principles and beliefs that underpins what a company does and how it acts, just like an individual. So an example could be that commitment, honesty, respect, fairness, hard work, risk and cost awareness, creativity, respect for human rights. You see, these are these examples that I've mentioned are some core values that an entity could uphold. You will say that, oh, as for us that we work hard. As for us, we have respect for human rights. As for us, we have respect for affirmative action. You know, these are some core values of businesses. So, is that a company with a strong corporate value is more likely to succeed than a company with a weak corporate value? Of course, if you're an individual and then you have high moral values, the probability that you go to heaven is very high than an individual who doesn't have high moral values. It is the same thing with entities. And a company with high values, your values is that you have respect for human rights, you have respect for your employees, you have respect for law and order. I mean, you are not breaching any law. The regulators will not have issues with you. So you would what? You would succeed. You are likely to succeed than the company with a weak corporate value. All right. So we have looked at the first part, corporate value. Now let's look at corporate culture. And what is corporate culture? Corporate culture. We said it is defined as the collection of values, beliefs, ethics, and attitude that characterize a company and what and guide what it does. It simply expresses how things are done here. When we talk about culture, like we all know from our basic schools, the culture is the way of life of a particular group of people. So when we talk about corporate culture, corporate means business or an entity, organization. So it means organizational, how the organization conducts itself. So when we talk about corporate culture, it simply means how things are done in this organization. So when you go to a fitting shop, their culture is different. Their culture is that wobɛhyɛ atare bi a wonam abɔnten a wobɛka sɛ ayɛ fi but ɛnyɛ fi ɔmo adwuma mu atareɛ no no. When you go to a bank, their culture is that you wear suits, you follow a particular status quo. When you go to Malamata markets, they have a culture. The way they do things in that organization is what we describe as corporate culture. Now, what are the factors that shapes organizational culture. The factors that shape organizational culture. One is the formal structure. When we talk about formal structure, we want to know whether it is bureaucratic or entrepreneurial. Bureaucratic means there are formal ways of doing things. There are systematic ways of doing things. When you have an issue, you have to report to your manager. Then your manager will report to this person. Then that person will also report to someone. There's a formal channel of communication. There's there's a defined way of doing things. So in bank, for instance, there's that formal way of doing things, and that is shaping how they conduct themselves. You know that Monday you are supposed to wear some Western wear. You have to stick in, you have to get some suits on, some blue shirts, you know. But when you go to the fitting shop too, you see, they have their own culture. It is entrepreneurial in nature. They don't have specific ways of doing things. You go and then the workers are eating with their boss. That is also because of their structure, their informal structure. They conduct themselves in a certain kind of way. In that same way, when you go to the bank, because of their formal nature, they conduct themselves in a certain way. Another factor is the size. The size. How does the size shape the organizational culture? If you go to a small company like a startup, you see that the CEO is the HR, he is the finance manager, he is the marketing manager, he is the research and development officer, he is everything. So the few employees, they can easily talk to the CEO, they can easily reach out to the CEO. I mean, when they are making decisions, simple, no formal strategic way of doing things. Why? Because the size is small. In that same way, if you go to a large company like Deloitte, because it is big and it has systems and structures, you can't jump to the CEO to talk to him. No. So you see, the size of the company is defining how the employees conduct themselves within the organization. We have 10 minutes to and then come back. The next thing is leadership. The leadership. Leadership also shape the culture of an entity. How is that? When you are in a company where the leader is democratic, the leader wants to listen to the views of employees before he takes decision. The leader wants to involve people in whatever it is done. You see that the employees will be innovative because they have the opportunity to share their ideas, their thinking. So, on the other hand, when the leader is autocratic, the leader, hey, I am the boss. I started the company. I know what is up. I know what is good for the company. You notice that the employees will be quiet, even if they have brilliant knowledge, brilliant idea, they'll keep it to themselves because if you bring it up, the leader might put it somewhere. I mean, who even invited your opinion in the first place? So you see that the leadership is shaping how the employees will conduct themselves within the organization. That is why we are saying that leadership is also a factor that shapes the organizational culture of an entity. The next thing is the location. Location. How does the location influence or affect the culture of an organization? If a company is in Ghana, in Ghana, we like what is happening very well. Please, can you hear me? Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, please.
Sure. So, if a company is located in Ghana, Ghana, the bosses, they are different. Oh. They want you to call them Boss, yes, sir. Good morning, sir. You know, I mean, for some companies, when a company is also based in USA, I mean, recently there was a news where someone had been called auntie, and the person is not so pleased with the fact that she's called auntie that he sends whoever is calling them auntie to court and they want some big money. That is organizational culture. But come to Ghana and come and call an elderly person in your workplace by his or her name straightforward without adding auntie, it will be an issue altogether. So you see, the location is determining how the employees conduct themselves in an organization. Now, if you are in Ghana, like having it is now that we are opening up a little bit. I go to Ridge Hospital and I see doctors who have dreadlocks and wearing anklets and all of that. We are getting there. But you see, there are certain companies that these things are abominable. You can't have dreadlocks. You know, you can't wear anklets. You can't do certain things when you are in Ghana. But when you go to the Western world, these things are very normal to do. So you see, the location is shaping the culture, how the people conduct themselves in the organization. So location is also a factor. The next thing is the business environment, and I think I've explored this. Bank, if your business environment is bank, you see, just the fact that it is bank alone, you can't even be wearing African wear from Monday to Friday. No, as far as it is bank. In that same way, if it is a mechanic shop, you can't be dressing certain kind of way to a mechanic shop every day. In that same way, if it's a hospital, you see, your business environment, it is shaping how the employees conduct themselves in the organization. So you see, it is shaping the culture of the organization. Another thing is also events. Events. When we talk about events, it is the responsiveness to an action or an event. So you see, you are in a company and then someone has consistently not been coming to work and then they haven't done anything to the person. You will, oh, okay, so this kind of work there, even if you don't come to work, they don't punish you, they don't query you or anything. So you see, the event is shaping the behavior of the people because other people will be emulating that. If they give you deadline, you don't meet the deadline, you are not queried. Oh, okay, event. So you see, other people too, they will not be forcing themselves to be meeting deadlines because after all, our company, if you don't meet the deadline, there's no query. So you see, events is shaping the culture of the employees within an organization. All right, so that is corporate core value and corporate culture and the factors that influences it. Any question? Any question? Please, do we understand what we have done so that we can move to handy cultural? Please, any question? Very well. Very well. So now let's look at Handy's culture. So categories of corporate culture by Charles Handy. Categories of corporate culture by Charles Handy. Now, Charles Handy has categorized corporate culture into four broad perspectives. And I call that PET. 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 P-E-R-T. PET. P for power, E for existential, R for role, and T for task. So we have power culture, existential or person culture, role culture, and then task culture. That is how Charles Handy has categorized corporate culture. So we take the first one, power culture. What does that mean? He said this culture is characterized by the dominance of one major source of power at the center of the organization. It is usually found in small companies where the boss is usually the founder. It is based on trust, and the individuals maintain freedom of maneuver and retain power. A major problem of this kind of culture is that as the organization grows bigger, it becomes difficult for one person to control everything. So power culture is saying that you see when you are in an organization and then power is emanating from one source. A very vivid example of this is Otumfuo's throne. You see, whoever you are, the source of power is emanating from Odenihon Otumfuo. That is a typical example of a power culture. So when you are in an organization and everything is about the power is at the center. If we go and buy something, we are coming to the boss. If we have to take a decision, we are coming to the boss. If we have to anything, we are coming to the boss. Everything, we are coming to the boss. Then there's power culture being displayed in there. What they added is that it is mostly found in small businesses or startup. Of course, when you start your company, it is only the CEO or the founder and some employees. So you see, power culture will display itself. But as the company grows, it will be difficult for one person to handle the entire affairs of that organization. So as the company grows, you see there will be decentralizations here and there. So the power will be breaking. So mostly you see power culture vividly displayed in small entities or startups. Note that very well. The second one is existential culture or person culture. Our recording will end very soon. I'll create another one and then we'll join shortly. Existential culture. This culture is characterized by the entire organization built around one individual or group of individuals, and the rest of the organization exists to serve the need of that central individual. The organization exists to serve the talented individual or the group. A typical example here is Lionel Messi when he was in Barcelona. You see, the entire Barcelona was about Lionel Messi.